Good morning. My name is Sarah Ford. I'm the legal director at the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network. And on behalf of SC Van and SCAD-VASA, these victims' families, and everyone here in the state of South Carolina, I appreciate you all being here. You know, it's essential that we believe victims and we support victims. And sometimes things get a little hazy, but hopefully after hearing from some of us up here, and including some victims, we can see those areas that need to change. Pointing out where things need to change is not a bad thing. It's essential in a democracy. And that's why we're here today in front of the State House to encourage our legislators to hear from people who have been victims and who have also been re-victimized by our system. And so I want to introduce the Executive Director of SCAD-VASA, Sara Barber.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here and showing your commitment to the victims and survivors of sexual violence. We know that sexual violence has devastating effects on the lives of victims in South Carolina that impact their lives and the lives of those around them far beyond the initial incidents and assaults. We often forget how common this experience is and how deep the damage runs in our communities. The National Intimate Partner in Sexual Violence Survey, published by the CDC, estimates that 20%, or 368,000 South Carolina women, have experienced at least one attempted or completed rape during their lifetime. Data from the Bureau of Justice reports that only 1 out of 3 rapes are reported to law enforcement, making the 2,429 sexual assaults reported to SLAD in 2020 almost meaningless in its undercount of the actual number of what occurred. Moreover, when victims of rape do report, they are often met with skepticism or outright disbelief. We stand here today because yet again, victims of sexual violence have been let down by the systems they believed would deliver justice in response to their experience. Dallas and Chloe spoke to what had been done to them, cooperated with the process, and they were let down. Again, we see the large disconnect between the remedies that we have put in place and how well they actually serve the victims of sexual violence. A system that is based on ideas of accountability for one's actions failed to hold an offender accountable on multiple occasions, creating outcomes of tragedy and pain that will continue to ripple out into the community. I often think of the words of the poet Lucille Clifton, which speak loudly to where we cannot create what we cannot imagine. Our current societal vision of justice is limited by experience of the system that we have. It's on our TVs, it's in our movie theaters, in the books we read, and most importantly, in the lived experience of many in our community. It is time for us to question the systems and to learn what else might work, how current practices may be changed to be more responsive and less harmful, and how we prioritize the immediate needs of victims and survivors for healing and justice. And beyond this, it is critical that we invest in sustained and directed prevention efforts that will result in the cultural changes so that respect and consent and intimacy in relationships are rooted in our expectations of one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Sara. I'd now like to introduce Reverend Dr. Darren Bess. He is the father of Chloe Bess.
Thank you all for being here today. This is a place that I never thought I would find myself, and I speak today as a father who has seen a child suffer, not only at the hands of an attacker, but then by the very system that was meant to protect her. She was openly slut-shamed in open court by a sitting South Carolina state senator. She was made to feel less than significant by a solicitor, and she and we were lied to repeatedly by law enforcement about the consequences that would be enforced should bond be violated, which happened over 50 times in our particular case, if you are familiar with it. Come to find out, the ones doing the monitoring are actually profiting from those who are being monitored. Who came up with this system? I'm supposing the same geniuses that came up with the way that we appoint judges here in South Carolina. Citizens of South Carolina should be concerned for their safety. Profit, power, positional appointments seem to take front seat over the rights of victims and their families, and the citizenry is just left a thumb for a ride. The South Carolina legislature needs to make changes so that there is accountability and protection for victims. Significant punitive measures should be a possibility when an individual disregards the terms of their bond and/or parole. It is obvious the system cares for criminals. Let's balance that system so that criminals are punished, not victims and their families. Here's a thought today. Maybe if we punished violent crimes and we enforced the laws and did not plea bargain them away, we'd have less rape and violent crime. Judges, solicitors, law enforcement, I believe, could benefit from some form of trauma-informed training about the stigma that surrounds rape victims and how to best support them. Protective orders need to be expanded. Someone shouldn't have to be repeatedly abused or perhaps even die for a violent criminal to finally be arrested. I believe we should enact legislation that would require court administration to track how many cases involving rape and violent crimes are actually plea bargained down to a lesser charge. I believe as citizens we should arrest power from lawyer legislators and put it back into the hands of the citizens of South Carolina. My wife and I are so proud of our daughter, Chloe. She is so brave. We love her beyond measure. Also, Dallas, her family is here today. We could not be more proud of them. Dallas's memory will live on by what we do here today and moving forward. The incestuous injustice system, thank you. The incestuous injustice system, corruption, nepotism led by South Carolina lawyer legislatures stand in the way of keeping the citizens of South Carolina safe. If I have learned anything throughout this process, it is when powerful people bargain with those who desire power, the masses, we, the people, lose power. Or maybe it's better said that when the elephants in the room fornicate, the mice get stepped on. Friends, enough is enough. It's time for change in South Carolina. God bless you all.
Thank you, Dr. Bess. I would now like to introduce State Senator Katrina Shealy. We are very grateful that she was able to join us this morning. She has been, at the time she was elected, she was the only woman in the Senate, and I believe now she is one of 5 women in the South Carolina State Senate. She is a leader, and we are very, very grateful that she is here with us today.
Yes, I am a South Carolina State Senator, but I am a victims' rights advocate. Since I have been in the South Carolina State Senate for the last 10 years, I have fought for victims from children to adults. I have fought for victims of sexual violence, for mothers, for children, for everyone. And I fight for you, and I fight for your families. And I will do everything in my power to see that we make these changes. I've already fought for them. The problem is I don't have everybody in the Senate and the House fighting the same way I am. But we will continue to fight. I agree with you that we don't need lawyer legislators making these decisions. We do have problems. When you need a restraining order, you need to get a restraining order. You shouldn't have to fight to get a restraining order to protect you. I believe that when someone is convicted or even suspected of a crime against you, you shouldn't have to prove yourself to be innocent. When you know that you've been raped or violated or even lost your life, they're innocent until proven guilty, but you're the victim that is having to be put up before the judge and criticized and violated. Once again, So I promise you today that I will stand with you. I will pass legislation. I will do everything I can to work with you to make the changes in the judicial system, in the legislative system, whatever it takes to make a difference. So hopefully this will not happen again. And I thank you for letting me be here, and I promise you, even though I'm a Republican, I am not that elephant in the room.
Thank you so much, Senator Shealy. I'd like to now introduce Brett Tabitabai. She is the older sister of Dallas Dollar.
Hi, my name is Brett. Thank you all for being here today. As Sarah said, I'm the older sister of Dallas Dollar. In October of 2018, Dallas was sexually assaulted. I'm so sorry. Jesus. You guys, I'm sorry, what the fuck? Excuse me. In October of 2018, Dallas was sexually assaulted. For 3 years after her attack, Dallas suffered severe mental anguish, not only from the trauma of her assault, the trauma of being relentlessly bullied by peers and adults in the community, the trauma of hearing one of your very own state senators slut shame one of her fellow victims, the trauma of a system that repeatedly failed her over and over again, a system that has bred generations of women to believe that their voice and their story doesn't matter. On November 14th, 2021, Dallas lost her life. My parents lost a child. We lost our sister. And the world lost a bright young girl with mountains of potential. 5 months after her passing, we sat on a Zoom call with a solicitor who told us that they were dropping her case, that she wasn't here to say it was not consensual, because it wasn't worth their time or the taxpayers' money. Dallas had given sworn statements. She had a witness. She had plenty of evidence to move forward. Does it make it harder? Absolutely. Does it make it impossible? No. But they silenced her, as they have countless other victims. So what do we do when the oppressors are the very leaders who are supposed to protect these girls and these women and our victims, who are supposed to fight for them? We fight. We stand for the silenced. We make noise, and we don't stop until we are heard. We vote the good old boys out. Every victim deserves a voice, and we are their voice. We are Dallas's voice now, and we will be heard. Bill Weeks, your move. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. I'd now like to introduce Chloe Bess. Chloe is one of the most courageous young women I've ever met. Her bravery to stand in the face of bullying, trauma, and disbelief, and continue to speak her truth, put her face out here, her name, and say, I deserve better, and other victims deserve better. It's my pleasure to introduce Chloe to y'all.
Hi, my name is Chloe Bess. I am standing here today to address how the justice system re-victimized me. The most traumatic night of my life has been drug out for 3 years. I put my faith in a system to help me, and I believed they would. Instead, they completely failed me. They failed Dallas, and I'm positive many others. My case is a ripple effect because of the failure of the previous 2 cases with the same perpetrator. When are things going to change? Why do these people keep getting away with making excuses for criminals? Who is not doing their job, and why do they still hold power? Being aware that I am not the only one, why was a state South Carolina senator allowed to publicly slut-shame me in court? Perhaps when your client is guilty, the only defense is to attack the victim. I am disgusted by the way things were handled. I'm not the one who did anything wrong, so I've always wondered why I was treated like I did. The senator stated that I never said no, but I can guarantee I never said yes, and I have the scars to prove it. What happened to me that night does not define me, but it does haunt me. However, it also motivates me to speak out and encourage other victims to stand up. We can't keep allowing victims to be treated this way. All it's doing is showing the perpetrator they can get away with it time after time, and it's evident, particularly in this case. No one can change what happened, but they were supposed to help me. Unfortunately, with Dallas no longer with us, it is our responsibility to keep her story out there, and I will not be silenced. Enough is enough. If you are a victim, it is so important to find your voice. Without it, horrible things like this will continue to happen. We have to stand together and fight for change. We have to stand up against big, broken systems and push back against big, powerful bullies, and that's going to take all of us. Thank you.
She's amazing, isn't she? Our system often forgets that but for what happened to the victim, our system really wouldn't exist, would it? We wouldn't have prosecutors, judges, defense attorneys. But somewhere along the way, our system became very defendant-centric, and victims have been pushed out of the courtroom, pushed out of input into what happens in their case, and discouraged from participating. It's no wonder that the majority of sex crimes are not even reported, because victims see what happens and the relatively rare instance in which these cases are successfully prosecuted. At the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network, SCAD-VASA, and a number of other organizations here, we are here to serve South Carolina victims. It is not an easy process, but you are not alone. There are lawyers, advocates, counselors, and countless people who are here to stand with you and for you and make those arguments for you both inside and out of the courtroom, because the time for victims being pushed out is over. At the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network, we recently filed an appeal in this case because victims' rights have been trampled on time and time again. These are constitutional rights. These are not suggestions. These are not a list of check marks for judges or prosecutors to check off and say, yes, I did that. These are real people with real trauma who deserve respect and dignity. And we will all fight to make sure that that happens. So I thank you all for being here today, for supporting these victims and other victims. It is essential that people know that this is okay for us to talk about. It's not only okay, it's essential. If we continue to shy away from these hard conversations, then nothing will change. And from you being here today, and these folks being up here today so brave, speaking, we will make that change. And so I ask you all, we are going to head into the lobby. We have some information on how you can contact your representative or senator. There are a number of things that need to change, whether it's accountability with GPS monitoring or tracking the number of cases that are pled down in domestic violence and sexual assault cases. We don't even know what those numbers are. How can we make change if we don't know what the data shows us? It's essential that we make sure that people, not only here at the Capitol, at our State House, but in our court systems, know that our courts work for the people. The people don't work for the courts. And these legislators work for the people of South Carolina. So I encourage you to stay, join us, get some information on SCADVASA, the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network, how you can support victims, and help us advocate for these victims and other victims all across our state. Thank you all so much for being here.